You have been told your whole life that staying is strength, that endurance is virtue, that the person who walks away is the person who quit. But what if that story is the thing that is destroying you? Welcome to the Stoic Compass. I am EPICTETUS, and today I am joined by Carl Jung and LAOZI. Today we are examining, when is walking away the braver, wiser choice? Let us be precise about what we mean. Walking away from what? A conversation? A career? A person you have spent years trying to fix? The word walking away carries 1,000 different weights depending on what you are carrying. But here is the question that cuts through all of it. Are you leaving because you are clear or because you are afraid? Those are not the same thing, and most people confuse them constantly.
I would push back on that framing immediately. You are setting up a binary, clarity versus fear, as though the two cannot occupy the same moment. But in my experience, the person who walks away is almost always doing both at once. They are afraid, yes, and they may also be seeing something true. The question is not whether fear is present. Fear is always present at a threshold. The question is whether the fear is pointing at something real or whether it is pointing at an old wound being reopened.
You are both assuming that the person knows they are at a threshold. Most of the time, they do not. They are exhausted. They have been grinding against something that was never going to move. What they call a decision is actually just the moment they ran out of effort. That is not the same as choosing, but it is not nothing either.
Running out of effort is not wisdom. I have no patience for dressing up exhaustion as enlightenment. If you leave because you are tired, you have not learned anything. You will arrive at the next relationship, the next job, the next commitment, and you will get tired again. And you will leave again, and you will call that wisdom too. The pattern does not break because you keep fleeing it.
And yet the pattern also does not break because you keep staying in things that are slowly eroding you. EPICTETUS, your framework puts enormous weight on the will. Stay, decide, commit. But what about the person who has been staying for 20 years in something genuinely wrong for them? Not because they are strong, but because they cannot tolerate the guilt of leaving. That is not virtue. That is a prison with a story about virtue painted on the wall.
That is closer to what I am pointing at. The question is not staying or leaving. The question is whether you can see what is actually in front of you. Most people cannot because they are too busy arguing with themselves about what it should be.
Fine, then help me see it. What is in front of them? Because from where I stand, the person who cannot decide whether to leave is usually the person who has not yet been honest about what they want. Not what they fear, not what they owe, what they want. When you are honest about that, the decision often becomes obvious. The suffering is in the gap between what you know and what you are willing to say out loud.
That is partly true, but it only addresses the conscious layer. The person you are describing, the one who cannot make the decision, is often stuck not because they lack honesty, but because they are carrying something that predates this situation entirely. The relationship they cannot leave is not just this relationship. It is also the one they watched their parents struggle through. It is the voice that told them love requires sacrifice. It is the belief, buried so deep they have never examined it, that they do not deserve anything simpler. You cannot will your way past material you have never looked at.
I think you are both describing real things and both missing the same point. EPICTETUS says, get clear about what you want and act. Jung says, excavate what is beneath the surface and then act. But both of you are still focused on the person's internal machinery. You are not asking what the situation itself is telling them. Sometimes a thing has simply run its course, not because of anyone's psychology, not because of a failure of will, just it is done. The river has moved. The path that was here is no longer here. Whether they leave or stay, they cannot go back to what it was. That recognition, not the decision, is actually what frees them.
A river moving is not a decision. A person has to make one. I will grant you that some things do simply end. I am not arguing against reality, but the person still has to reckon with the ending. They still have to choose what posture they take toward it. Do they leave with their eyes open or do they drag themselves out? Do they name what happened or do they spend the next decade avoiding it? The Stoic does not simply drift out the door because the current took them. The Stoic names what is in their control and acts on it.
And I would argue that naming what is in their control requires knowing themselves well enough to distinguish between genuine clarity and a rationalization. The mind is remarkably good at building logical cases for what it emotionally needs to do. The person who has decided to leave will find reasons. The person who has decided to stay will find different reasons. The reasons feel real either way. That is why the question, am I being clear or afraid, is so much harder to answer than you are making it sound. You need more than will to answer it. You need some form of honest self-examination that most people actively resist.
Or you could simply stop talking yourself into and out of it and notice what is already true, not as a practice of excavation and not as an act of will. Just look at what is actually here, not what you hoped it would be, not what it used to be, what it is now. The decision often makes itself when you stop arguing with reality.
That sounds peaceful, and I'm not sure peace is what this moment calls for. Sometimes the braver thing is the harder thing. Walking away from something that is comfortable but wrong for you, that takes active courage. It is not a gentle noticing. It is a choice made against significant internal resistance, and the person has to make it consciously or it does not count. They will find a way to go back. They always do.
I want to stay with the word wrong for a moment because I think it is doing a great deal of work in your argument. How does the person know it is wrong? Not comfortable, not easy, wrong. Because in my clinical work, I have met people who left marriages that were genuinely good for them because those marriages were asking them to grow in ways they were not willing to grow. They called the marriage wrong. What they meant was, this is asking too much of me. That is a very different kind of walking away. That is flight from transformation dressed up as discernment.
And I have seen the opposite. People who stayed in things that were genuinely finished because they could not tell the difference between a threshold and a wall. They called it commitment. They called it strength. They were just standing still in a place that had already let them go.
Then we are back to the question of how you know, which is the only real question here. And my answer is this: you know by looking at what is in your control, not what you feel, not what you fear, not what the symbols in your dreams are suggesting. What can you actually do? What actually depends on you? When you see that clearly, the question of whether to leave or stay resolves itself, not easily, but clearly. Clarity is not comfort. Clarity is precision about your own agency.
Clarity about agency is necessary but not sufficient. You also need to understand why you have made the same kind of exit or the same kind of endurance in situation after situation. The person who always leaves before things get too close is not exercising clear agency. They are running a program. The person who always stays past the point of sanity is also running a program. Neither of them is choosing freely until they understand the program.
You are both asking people to do a great deal of work before they act, and I understand why. But sometimes the person asking this question is not stuck in a pattern. They are simply in a situation where the right thing has become unmistakably clear to them, and they are looking for permission. They do not need excavation. They do not need a framework. They need to hear, yes, it is allowed. Leaving is allowed. It does not make you a coward. It does not make you a failure. Sometimes it just makes you honest.
I can agree with that, with one condition. The honesty has to be real, not performed, not convenient, actually real. Because I have seen people give themselves permission to leave things they should have stayed for, and I've seen people refuse permission and stay in things that were eating them alive. The permission is not the problem. The discernment behind it is.
And the discernment requires looking at the parts of yourself you find most uncomfortable, which is exactly what most people who are asking this question are not doing. They are examining the situation, they are examining the other person, they are examining the history and the circumstances. They are not examining the part of themselves that keeps ending up here, in this exact kind of dilemma with this particular flavor of suffering. That is the examination that changes something.
The water does not examine the stone. It simply finds the way around it or through it, or it waits. Not because it is passive, but because it is not confused about what it is. The difficulty most people have with walking away is that they no longer know what they are. They have become so entangled with the situation that they cannot tell where it ends and they begin. The question is not really about leaving. The question is about recovering the sense of themselves that existed before the entanglement took hold.
Now that I can work with, because recovering your sense of yourself is a practice, not a feeling. You recover it by acting in alignment with your values repeatedly, even when it is inconvenient, even when it costs you something. You do not wait to feel clear and then act. You act, and clarity follows. If leaving is the aligned choice, then leave. But leave cleanly, with full acknowledgement of what you are doing and why. Do not drift out. Do not manufacture grievances to make the leaving feel justified. Walk out the door with your eyes open.
I can meet you there mostly, but I want to add that acting in alignment with your values is complicated when your values themselves are shaped by wounds you have not yet examined. A person who learned as a child that they must earn their place in every room will act in alignment with that value, and it will feel like integrity to them. It is not integrity, it is a survival strategy that has outlived its usefulness. Acting clearly requires knowing which of your values are genuinely yours and which ones were installed by circumstances you no longer live in.
You are asking people to do so much. Both of you. Epictetus says act. Jung says examine everything before you act. I am not sure either answer fits the person who is genuinely lost in the middle of this. Sometimes the right move is simply to stop, not leave, not stay, stop pushing. Stop arguing, stop trying to solve it, and notice what remains when you take the effort away. What is still here when you stop fighting it? The answer to whether to leave is often in that stillness, not in the analysis.
Stillness is a luxury, and I do not say that dismissively. I say it because the person asking this question is usually not in stillness. They are in pain and they need to move. The question is not whether they should sit with it. The question is whether their next move should be toward the door or back into the room. And that question demands an answer, not a pause.
Or perhaps the pause is the answer. Perhaps the reason they keep getting it wrong, leaving too soon, or staying too long, is precisely that they keep demanding an answer before they have looked clearly. The urgency you are describing, Epictetus, is real, but it is also part of the problem. Urgency collapses perspective. When a person is in that much pain, the need to resolve it becomes stronger than the need to understand it. And that is exactly when the most consequential mistakes get made.
I think you are arguing about the same thing again. The person cannot see clearly when they are in the middle of the storm. You are both right about that, but the question is not whether to analyze or act. It is whether they can find a moment, even a single breath, where they are not performing either courage or wisdom, but are simply present with what is. Not forever, just long enough to hear what they already know.
You have heard the argument, now let the argument go. What remains is simpler than any of this.
The reason walking away is so hard is not that people lack courage. It is that they cannot tell the difference between what they are leaving and what they are running from. Those are not the same direction. One is forward, the other is a circle. When you are truly leaving, when it is the right call, there is a quality to it that is different from flight. It is not comfortable. It may still be painful. But underneath the pain, there is something solid. A recognition, not a relief. You are not escaping something. You are finally seeing it clearly enough to name it, and the naming is what allows you to go. When you are running, the feeling is different. There is urgency. There is the need to be done. There is a story, often a very convincing one, about why this situation or person is the problem. That story deserves scrutiny, not because the situation is necessarily good. It may not be. But because if you leave without examining the story, you will write it again somewhere else with different characters on a different stage. The brave choice, whether it is staying or leaving, is always the one made with clear eyes. Not comfortable eyes, clear ones. Today, try this. Write down the story you are telling yourself about why leaving is necessary or why staying is necessary. Then ask yourself, is this the first time I have told a version of this story? If the answer is no, you are not yet looking at the situation. You are looking at the pattern. That is where the real work begins, and it is also where the real freedom is.
Walking away can be the bravest thing you ever do, or it can be the thing you do instead of the brave thing. The difference lives in a question you have to ask yourself honestly. Am I moving towards something or away from something I cannot bear to face? You know the answer. You have known it this whole time. The only thing standing between you and that answer is the story you have been willing to settle for. Stop settling. If today's conversation has served you, take it further. Pay Attention by C. Tribute. 12 Lessons in the Practice of Seeing Clearly. Available now on Amazon.